Hello there, my name's Suze. I'm the Developer Community Manager here at Redis. Thanks so much for joining us today. This is my first stream. I was just saying to Simon and Pauline backstage, this is my first stream for about a month, so I'm a little bit rusty after a whole month of doing them in December. So yeah, hopefully get back into the swing of things very quickly. But yeah, I hope you had a nice break if you managed to get any time off at the end of December. And for any of you folks that are keen, there's still time to do our December challenges if you want to. If you didn't get around to doing them last month, go to developer.redis.com/December. You'll find them all there along with all the recordings. But today is really exciting. We are doing our very first collaboration of the year with a really exciting company and a really wonderful DevRel. It's so nice to work with our DevRel colleagues from other companies. So as you might know, we have a thing called Redis University. And at Redis University, we have a number of free courses that you can take at your leisure over the course of about 6 weeks. So we've got about 8 courses with a 9th one coming this year. So we've got an intro to Redis Data Structures, RU101. And what we're going to be focusing on today is RU102. Now, RU102 is 3 different courses, so whatever your favourite language is, pick that one, and we've probably got a course for it. JavaScript, Java, and Python. And within that course, you get to build an app to get solar power readings. So it's really cool. And we've been sort of experimenting with a few different ways of making this available to people and making it easier for people to run it on their machines. But we are very aware that not everybody has got really great hardware. Some of you don't have good broadband and things like that. So what we have done is we have found Pauline and Gitpod, and Gitpod is a really cool way of working with these things in your browser. So what we're going to do today is I've got Simon with me from Redis and we've got Pauline from Gitpod, and they are going to show you how to use Gitpod with our Redis University course. So let's bring Pauline and Simon into the mix.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi everyone.
You're good?
Yes, all good. Really excited to be here.
Cool. Okay, good. Let's start with some intros then. Pauline, let's start with you.
Oh, okay. I'll go first as the guest. So yeah, hi everyone. It's so lovely to be on the stream today. I'm also very rusty when it comes to streaming. The last time I streamed was also last year, so I'm still trying to get into the swing of things. But yeah, really excited to be here. As Suze has said, I'm a community engineer at Gitpod. So my role is mostly focused on building and supporting our community to be as successful as they can be whilst using Gitpod, because as you can imagine, our community it's growing and there's so many developers from different walks of life. So some of them focus on JavaScript, Python, Java, whatever it is. And we sort of like cater for them and make sure that whatever technology they're using on Gitpod works and is as seamless as possible in terms of developer experience. So yeah, I started at Gitpod just 6 months ago now, and it's been so much fun. And whenever there's an opportunity to do a collaboration like this, I always like go for it. I'm always like, yeah, we should definitely showcase how awesome Gitpod is with different companies and how they sort of work together. Yeah, community has been sort of the heart of everything in my previous roles, and I really try to bring it into those roles. So it's awesome to have it as my full-time job now, and especially when open source software is really at the front and center of my role. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell, and really excited to be here.
Oh, we're really excited to work with you, and hopefully the first of many collabs with you this year. Let's see what we can achieve together in 2022. And for anyone who's intrigued about Pauline's background, this is actually my second collab with Pauline, because I interviewed Pauline in November last year and we're just working on getting the video up. So yeah, if you follow me and Pauline on Twitter, shameless plug, when that video goes up, you can watch it and found out about how Pauline pivoted from software engineering to DevOps to DevRel. Cool. Thanks for that, Pauline. I'll come back to you in a second. Simon, hello.
Hello, I'm Simon Prickett. I'm the Developer Advocacy Manager here at Redis. And one of the things that falls under my remit is operations of Redis University. So we have an online website and course platform system that you can sign up for. We now have like 8 different courses and the 9th one in production. And you can sign up for these, take them entirely online. The courses consist of a mix of video content and text-based HTML content. And the vast majority of them have a GitHub repo where you can actually sort of get in and get working with something. Because we're a database company, that's always going to involve Redis, the database product that we build and maintain. And we've looked at different ways of having students interact with Redis, and in some cases just the Redis CLI, so the command line interface for entering database commands. In other cases, like the course we'll look at today, you often obviously use a database within an application. So we have students work on a sample application that we provide quite a comprehensive GitHub repo for, and they solve challenges that involve usually the database access layer, because that's what we're teaching. We have looked at numerous ways that I'll sort of get into in a bit to enable different ways of allowing students to interact with this code, both in terms of downloading it all and putting it on your laptop, running it entirely in the cloud, running it on our Redis cloud, and all sorts of spectrum of things in between. And we sort of came across Gitpod, and I'll let Pauline explain exactly what that is. But basically, it gives us a way of provisioning environments to students really, really reliably, very, very quickly, and using tools that they already know, which, as educators is half the battle. We're here to teach you Redis. If I have to teach you an IDE that you don't already know and a whole system and way of doing things, or you're not familiar with, say, Docker Compose, then that's all of this other like mental headspace that we have to teach. And, we see Gitpod as taking some of that away. So I will sort of demonstrate what the courses are briefly and look at the sort of things that students do. And I was going to hand over to Pauline to show us what Gitpod is. And then I'll kind of show you how one of our students can solve one of our programming challenges with Gitpod without installing anything on the machine or the phone or the Android device or whatever it is that they've got.
Cool. Okay, so just for folks who are watching, the way we're going to run this today, like Simon just said, Simon's going to show us a little brief overview of the course and what you build in the course. Pauline's then going to hop on and show us how to make it so much easier with Gitpod. And then Simon and Pauline are going to demo it together. Simon's then going to take us through a little code challenge, and then we're just going to wrap up. So we envisage that this whole stream should be done at about 1 o'clock UTC, so in another 15 minutes time. But if you have any questions, please drop them in the live chat and we will try and answer as many as we can. If you have any questions, if you're watching the recording, then feel free to join us on Discord. So Gitpod has a Discord, and so does Redis. We will put the links up for you. Feel free to join there and we will answer any questions that you have. So for now, what we're going to do is Pauline and I are going to drop off the stream, and we're going to leave Simon on, and Simon's going to do his little outline, and then he'll bring Pauline back into the stream. So I will catch you again at the end. See you in a bit, everybody.
Okay, so I'm just going to share my desktop really quickly. There we go. So this is Redis University. So what's Redis University? Very, very quickly, it's a free way to come and learn about Redis in many different ways. You can learn about Redis as an application developer. You can learn about it as someone that has to install and maintain and grow a Redis cluster. So we have a course for that. And you can basically learn about both open source Redis and additional features that are available in Redis Enterprise, which is a commercial product from Redis, the company that Suze and I work for. Everything you see on Redis University is free to sign up for and to take, and everything is relevant to the open source products. So here's the website. Basically what happens is students come along and they pick one or more courses to enroll on. So we have 8 available at the minute and a 9th one that's in production. And today we are going to focus on, as Suze says, what we call the 102 classes. So we have 3 of those. There's 102J here, which is Redis for Java developers. If you use the Java programming language, then we have exactly the same course with exactly the same example application, but the backend's rewritten in either Node.js or Python. So we're covering 3 pretty popular programming languages here. If we look at the JavaScript course, the reason why we've picked this one to go with Gitpod is, well, a couple of reasons, really. I'm mostly familiar with it because I wrote the course content and I'm the presenter. So if you take this course, you get to watch a lot of me on video, and sorry about that. But we decided we'd pick this course, but this process should apply pretty much to any of our courses. And we'll aim to maybe offer some Gitpod with some of the other courses at some point. But for now, we're going to focus on the JavaScript course. But everything you see here applies to all sorts of other environments, as I'll let Pauline explain. Our course environment is just an application that we need to run in a controlled environment. This could be like your enterprise application you're working on or anything else. We're just happening to use this for education. So the course here comes with, when you sign in, it's like a structured learning management system that has modules. And we go through, and there's a mix of videos. So I won't play the video here, but this is a video of me explaining how to get up and running with the source code and solve a programming challenge. There's homework, which is multiple choice questions that you get to answer having watched the materials. And if you get 65% or higher on this homework and a final exam, then you get a certificate from us that you can put on your LinkedIn profile as a credential. And all of that's free. What we're going to focus on today is kind of the environment setup. So to be successful with this course, you kind of need to get into the code and run it somewhere. And the code needs a Node.js environment. It needs some dependencies that you npm install. And one way or another, you need a running Redis instance with a Redis time series module, which is one of the add-ons that we at Redis offer. So traditionally, we've done this in a few different ways. So we've had a Docker compose file inside in the project, or we have people just run Redis through Docker. So we provide instructions for that. So this means you need Docker installed. You're pulling quite a lot of stuff over the internet, and you need quite a decent machine to run Docker and get decent performance out of this. The other options are basically run everything yourself on your own machine. So install Redis, compile it from source, or get it from Homebrew if you're on the Mac, or another apt if you're on Linux, for example, another manager. And then for Windows, Redis doesn't naturally run on Windows. So we have a way of helping people with Windows 10 and up to use the subsystem for Linux and run it essentially on Ubuntu. So again, we're back into needing quite a high power laptop for that. So what we as a team have been looking for is other ways of doing this that kind of does a couple of things, reduces that setup burden on the student, enables the course for more people who maybe don't have this sort of equipment or whose network connections are not appropriate for downloading masses of stuff. And also potentially as a sort of side benefit to provide environments that we, the instructors, could sort of jump into and help people out. So we provide help through Discord, as Suze says. We have a channel for each course. And generally we have people paste, code or descriptions of what they're doing in there. And we talk to them about it and try and resolve it with them. But it would be great if we could also potentially jump into their environments and see what's going on. So the other thing that comes with each of the courses is a GitHub repo here. So as part of this course, you would clone this repo, and this has the complete application in it. You can see here what it looks like when it's running. It's a Vue front end, which isn't part of the course, and a Node.js backend, which is where all of the coding's at. And what you do is you complete challenges that enable functionality in this front end. So the first one is to make all of these dots appear on the map, for example. So that's it. So normally our approach would be you either run Docker and clone this and run it on your laptop with either a mix of Docker or entirely in Docker. But either way, you kind of need to run it somewhere on a laptop. So we wanted a way of moving that to the cloud. and we started talking to Pauline about Gitpod, and that's kind of what we've achieved together. So if I bring Pauline in now, and we can, if I bring Pauline in now and stop sharing my desktop, yeah, I will hand over to you, Pauline, and let you explain what Gitpod does and how it's helping us here, and then we'll come back and look at actually doing some coding challenges.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. Thank you. Can someone add my screen, please? I'll give a demo. Oh, awesome. There it is. Cool. So yeah, as Simon has already said, there are quite a few pain points when it comes to setting up a local dev environment. And I'm actually no stranger to courses like these, because I used to teach courses with a company called Code First Girls, and we did a similar thing, getting into web development, getting into Python. And I remember those days of really struggling to try and help my students with their setup issues. Like, most of the time, the issues that we faced were actually that initial setup. And oftentimes as well, the first session, that was solely focused on setup. And so the whole point of Gitpod is to make that whole experience of setting up your developer environment just make it a better experience, just because there's a lot of friction there of manually setting it up. And we've seen from other areas of tech, like in the CI/CD world, and infrastructure as code world, everything is being automated. So we're reducing our time when we're setting up things like infrastructure. But when it comes to our local developer environment, it's still, the whole experience still sucks. When you're onboarding to a new project or you're doing a course like this, it just sucks. And there has to be better ways of setting that whole process up, and that's where Gitpod comes in. So just as a quick overview, Gitpod is an open source developer platform that automates exactly what I said, developer environments. So the whole point of it is to help free engineering teams from that friction of manually setting up local dev environments. So the whole point of it is to save dozens of hours when you are onboarding, or just working on your day-to-day, because Gitpod works in different contexts as well. And it just enables this level of a new level of collaboration, because your environment is now in the cloud. So we should be able to share it. We should be able to replicate your dev environment. So if you do come across an issue with your code, it should be as easy as sharing a link, which it is. So we'll go through that as well. So how Gitpod works, this is our website, gitpod.io. So it actually is natively integrated with GitLab, GitHub, and Bitbucket. So what it does is it automatically creates the dev environments for all of your branches. And as a result of that, if a team member or your instructor, you need help from them, they can automatically set the same dev environment as you, because you've already specified that this is what I want my dev environment to look like through code, dev environments as code. And so it should be, you should be able to replicate it every single time. So it's pretty much the way to reduce that friction. And so, yeah, I really like showing people our webpage, because I think it's a really good way of just explaining how it all looks. This graphic in particular I thought it was really awesome, because essentially every time you open Gitpod workspace, this is sort of how I like to imagine it as well. You have all of these little pods that is created, and then you can just start coding straight away. You have your own environments that you've already sort of specified. I thought that was a really smart way of demonstrating that. So yeah, like I said, feel free to have a look through our website, but you essentially create your dev environments as you code, and it's really cool. But I think one thing I want to stress right now as well is once you open a Gitpod workspace, the default workspace that we have is actually VS Code, and so you essentially have VS Code in the browser. But that's a common like misconception that I'm trying to sort of like to talk more about and educate people on. But it's not just VS Code. It's not. We're about to support all of these other IDEs as well. And also, even though the IDE is at the front and center of of your dev environment, it's also a lot of the automation, like installing dependencies and other tools that you need to be productive. So yeah, that's essentially it. And I'd like to give you like a quick demonstration on how you can get started. So this is our Gitpod repo for our website. And like I said, we're open source. So our Gitpod source code is on GitHub if you are curious to, deep dive in how we have built a Gitpod. And one of the most common questions I get asked actually is, how is Gitpod built? And the answer to that is, we build Gitpod in Gitpod. So it gets really meta at this point. But again, like I'll show you how exactly we do that. But this is just an example repo of our website. So this is the source code for our website. And essentially, you can start a Gitpod workspace in two different ways. You can either install our Gitpod browser extension, which works on Firefox and Chrome. And once you've installed that, every time you're in GitHub or GitLab or Bitbucket, you should be able to see this little button here on each of those platforms, and you can just click it and it starts a new workspace, which is really awesome. Or to get started, you could also just prefix your URL with gitpod.io/hash, and then just click enter. And as you can see there, now I'm creating a Gitpod workspace. This is my dev environment, and it's opening in the cloud. And you don't need to install anything locally on your machine. You don't need to worry about anything to install or to set up from your computer. So that makes it even better, because if someone next to you is a Windows user, or the other person is a Linux user or a Mac user, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter at all. You can just go ahead and start coding and developing using Gitpod. And now I'm getting this. This is the workspace that's creating right now for our website repo. I'm hoping, yay, it started. Demo gods are with me today. So yeah, it's just starting a new workspace for us. But whilst that's going, actually, let me just quickly show you. It's not just creating, oh, there you go, sorry. I have a specific setting set up when I was testing another IDE, which is why you can see this screen, why it says open in IntelliJ. But in this case, we just want it to open in the browser, which opens VS Code. And here we go. As you can see, this is our Gitpod workspace. This is our source code for our Gitpod website repo, as you can see. And we've also got our dev environment set up here, so you can actually see the website. So as you make edits to this, it will live update this. This is just for testing and dev purposes, so you can't just copy this link and then send it to someone to have a look at, especially if you haven't shared your workspace. But yeah, this is essentially what it looks like. For those who have used tools like VS Code, this should look familiar, because essentially this is VS Code. And the only difference is it's in your browser, and you're not running anything on your local machine, which is really cool. So I can go ahead and start making edits to the different pages on here, and it should update on this in our dev environment. But just to show you how this sort of works and give you a bit of an idea of what the Gitpod workspace looks like, just to get you comfortable. So you might have seen when this Gitpod workspace opened, you might have seen that this browser started loading here on the side automatically. And if you look here in our terminal, it's also saying, hey, we've started your dev server. And it did that all by itself, and I haven't touched anything. And the reason for that is it actually goes back to what I mentioned about dev environments as code. So we have this trusty Gitpod YAML file, and this is sort of the heart of Gitpod. It's not just an IDE in the cloud or in the browser. It's also the fact that you can automate a lot of the things that you normally have to do yourself locally. And once that automation is set up, you don't even have to think about it. So every time you open up a workspace, you can just focus on coding, which is how it's supposed to be. You shouldn't be faffing around with how your environment is set up, or if it's working or it's not working. It should just work. And this is what the Gitpod YAML file does. It allows you to specify what you want your dev environment to look like. So in this case, we've got I'll just skip over the ports for now, but we've got these different tasks. And this is documented in our Gitpod docs at gitpod.io/docs. So you can have a bit more of a read if you want to go into a bit more detail. But essentially, as you can see here, it has startup tasks. So once a Gitpod workspace opens in this repo, it initializes it by doing an npm install. So the reason it does an npm install is it needs the dependencies for this project, which is a Svelte project. So it needs all those dependencies. So it's that's the init phase. And then the next thing is we've got a command phase. And what we've said here is we want to export the GP URL, which is the Gitpod URL, to expose a port on the port 3000, and then do an npm run dev. This basically maps your local host to the Gitpod URL in port 3000. And we've also specified the port here, port 3000. And if you look on open, it says open in preview, which is why immediately once the workspace first opened, this browser tab started and it spun up, and you could see it here in the preview. But you can also actually change this to open browser, which then actually creates a new tab, and you can actually have it on there instead if you prefer it that way. And then all of these settings here are just for pre-builds, and pre-builds is a whole concept that I feel like I could take hours talking about. But essentially, it's a way to cache the dependencies that you've specified. So it sort of caches is sort of how I explain it, but it caches this init section, which means that next time you open your workspace, it doesn't need to do an npm install every single time. It will run on a pre-build. It will say, oh, I've seen you open this before, so I'll just take the pre-build from before and I'll run it, and therefore it's faster and quicker and everything. And then also down here, you can specify, because this is your dev environment, you can throw whatever you want in it. You can also specify which extensions you want to use in that environment. So for those who use VSCode before, you might have heard of your extensions. You might have special ones that you use. So you can actually install those extensions and specify them in the Gitpod YAML file so that you're able to replicate it every single time. And the good thing about this is we have a Svelte extension. So every single time our Svelte files can be read easily and stuff like that, and no one else has to install it on their workspace because it's already specified for this specific environment. And yeah, that's sort of the heart of Gitpod. That's gitpod.yaml file, which is really cool. And in order for you to use the automation that I was talking about, the dev environments as code, you need to specify this gitpod.yaml file. But if you don't want to do any of the automation at all, you can always just open Gitpod without the automation. But this is really at the tip of the automation and making that local dev environment feel less broken and full of friction and stuff like that. But yeah, so that's essentially it. And if for any if at any point you're like, oh, I can't find this, or you close this and you don't know where your preview's gone, if you just go over here to Remote Explorer, you should be able to see all of the ports that you have open. So these are open for different things as part of the application. But again, you can open it either in preview, or you can open that in a new browser. And you can see this is my dev environment. And then again, you can also create a new terminal from here. And then once you make your changes, you can also commit your changes, do source control as you usually would on your VS Code desktop. The more you use Gitpod as well, you might have specific settings that you want for your workspace. If you go on settings, you can change the color theme, file icon theme, product icon theme, and you can like make the settings sync throughout all of your workspaces. So even though it can be replicated by other people and stuff like that, you can also have it super personalized to you. So that you can set that up as well. And just quickly about collaboration before I pass on back to Simon, so we can look at Redis and Gitpod in action. But we talked a lot about collaborating and sharing this instance. So if you're a student who's stuck on a specific task and you can't understand why your code isn't working and you need an instructor to help you out, there's different ways you can actually share your workspace. And because it's online, because it's in the cloud, it's really quite simple. All you need to do is click this share button. And once you click this share button and say, okay, you're happy to share it, you can then take this URL and then send it to whoever you want to have a look at your code. And then they should be able to open that link and just look at your code and help you out in real time. And it is a really cool feature, but you have to make sure, just be aware that once you do share a workspace and you give that link to someone, they can see your source code. So if you don't want someone to look at your source code, don't just post it online on Twitter or something. Don't tweet your workspace once you've shared it. Just make sure that you trust the person you're sending that link to. But yeah, it's as you can see, it is a super useful tool, and I hope that it helps you with going through Redis University and hopefully other repos as well that you get on with. But yeah, I think that is a whistle-stop tour of what Gitpod is and a quick look at the Gitpod YAML file and the repo. And I hope that is just, explains it in a nutshell. But at the same time, if there is anything I didn't cover, check out our docs, check out our screencasts. And we also have a vibrant community, and we're more than happy to help you out with Gitpodifying your projects. And yeah, that's me. Hi, Simon.
Hi, thanks very much. That's a really great overview, and hopefully people can see what we were excited about with this project for education, but also the wider use of it just for software development.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really interesting because we actually do have quite a few professional developer teams using Gitpod for their day-to-day, which is sort of mind-blowing. So it can be used in loads of different contexts.
Yeah, and it's a really good testament to how far the browser platforms come, that VSCode in the browser feels very good. It feels like the real thing, because, well, it is the real thing. So there we go. Okay, thanks, Pauline. So what I was going to do was switch contexts a little bit and take you through how we could apply Gitpod to a Redis University course. So we said we'd look at the Redis for JavaScript developers course, and that course is a Node.js course, because obviously Redis is a server. It runs on a server side, and you don't want to expose Redis to the internet directly. So you wouldn't connect to it from a front end view or whatever framework you're building your front end in JavaScript application. So our project here is all about having students interact with a Node.js application and writing database layer code. So code that's going to use the Redis commands, so the ways of getting different data types in and out of Redis, to interact with the data set that we provide for you. So here I've got the course open, and I'm at the first programming challenge. So what we do in these programming challenges is We describe what students are expected to do. So here we're going to implement a function called find all. And that's basically going to find every solar site in our data set. Our data set is about solar panels on houses in the Oakland, California area. And it's basically going to pass that data set back from Redis through a function that's going to transform it into JSON. And then the front end knows how to render that. So we'll look at how that works in a minute. And the way that we don't grade these programming challenges, the way that we have students know that they've been successful is that we provide a test suite. So to begin with, there'll be tests that are skipped or fail. And when you have an answer that arrives at the correct format JSON with the right number of things in it, the test will start passing. This means that we don't necessarily know that you've got the optimal answer. So you could have come up with something that's like, from a big O perspective, quite inefficient. But that's why we also like to discuss things with students who are maybe not sure that their answer is the best answer, even though it works. So again, the Gitpod platform would enable me or my instructor team to jump in and actively share things with students without pasting things to and from Discord, which is what we currently do. So we would basically expect students to go through these instructions, and there's a video that goes prior to this that shows you how to set up the environment. What I've done here is I've taken the course repo here, which is a public repo. You can interact with this without taking the course if you want to. Obviously, you lose the instructional videos and the ability to get a certification. But if you just want to come and play with this code base and see how it works, it's fairly well documented. It's very well tested. And if you just want to cut to the answers, we have a master branch and then we have a solutions branch down here, which contains all of the coding challenges ready done for you. So if you just wanted to see how it works, play with it, you can do that. I said this is a public repo. It means anyone can do a pull request on it. So a little while ago, if we look on the closed ones, Pauline did a pull request here to add Gitpod support for it. And what that meant was she's added the gitpod.yaml file, and that's going to take away all of the setup steps for us. So broadly, it's going to give us an environment with a running Redis instance in Gitpod's cloud in Docker. It's going to give us VSCode. It's going to give us a terminal session that's already run npm install and got our dependencies, and it's going to do npm run dev, which in our case runs nodemon, which is a way of running the application so that every time you save a change to the code, it just restarts the server for you, and you can kind of like live code and see the changes in the front end. So what we're going to do is go over and see how that works. But how did I get a Gitpod workspace to start with? As a student, I'd fork this repo, and then as Pauline said earlier, I'd take this URL and I'd basically put gitpod.io/pound or hash in front of it. And then Gitpod would take over, read that configuration file, build my environment, and after a few seconds, we've got something that looks like this. So here I have a Gitpod workspace that has our course application in it. Over here, I've got all of the source files for the course. This is obviously VS Code in the cloud, so it looks and behaves like VS Code. Down here, I've got a terminal, so I can have a look at what a checkout of the project looks like from GitHub. I can also run Git commands here, so you can see I've got an untracked folder there, but no other changes. And as you'd expect, I can use the GitHub features in VS Code if I want to. Over here on the right, we've got the application server running. So that's running npm run dev, which runs nodemon. So every time I change a source file, you'll see that reboot. So if I do something like put an extra line break in here and save that, there it goes. It rebooted over to the right. And this is kind of the real party trick for me, is we can see the front end in here as well. So I've got everything inside this browser environment. I can move these things around and size them however I want, which is fantastic. And if I move over here, we can also click on this. And the initial state for our application is there's like one view in here that's already done for you so that you can check that data flows from your Redis database through to the front end, through the node application that you're working on. So as we can see here, that's happened. We have data. We have a these are like our highest performing and lowest performing solar sites. So which rooftops generate the most electricity and which generate the least. And that tells us that when Pauline's gitpod.yaml ran to set up this environment, it not only built the Redis instance that we needed, but it also injected the data in there using the data loader that we provide with the course. So all of this has saved students a lot of time, and they're up and running like immediately on whatever hardware they've got, which is fantastic. So over here, we've got a map, and the map doesn't show anything at the minute. What it's supposed to show is the locations of all of our solar sites, and they're all sort of around here in the Oakland, Berkeley, General Bay Area sort of place. So we're not seeing that at the moment. And the reason why we're not seeing that is that the code for it here is basically a blank. So we're returning an empty array at the minute. And the first programming challenge for students on this course is to rewrite this using what they've learned in the sort of preceding videos. And they're going to write code that gets all of the data out of Redis, formats it correctly, and returns it. So I am not going to sit and do that right now, but we're going to basically use some cheat code that I've cut and pasted from another window. And we're going to put that in there, save it, and you'll see that the application is rebooted. And now I have solar sites on my map. So I can then click on one of these, and we know it's working because all of this data is coming from Redis. So this is, in short, a really, really powerful way of working with this course, because in less than 2 or 3 minutes, I can be up and running with this course from any context that I've got a browser in. I could show it to somebody, in a sort of casual coffee shop situation. They might get interested and do it. And then, as Pauline says, I can help somebody who's already doing the course in quite a powerful way, because I can get right into their context and I know exactly what their setup is and that everything is as I would expect. So for us here at Redis, I think the interest with this is that it just eliminates a lot of setup issues. And we have done that previously using Docker, but we do require that you have a machine that's capable of running Docker and all of that stuff. And it's not good for that sort of casual, hey, just try my course out for a minute. Because if you're on, tethering to your phone, or you're on some broadband connection that's not great, it's going to take a while to download the Docker container. And this kind of gets rid of all of that. And also, as I said at the start, it removes the burden of having to learn new tools. So most people will be familiar with VSCode, certainly for Node developers. And we have this course for Python and Java as well. And we will be able to offer this with IDEs that are appropriate for those developers, or VSCode if we just chose to have a single one. So that was really what we've got. This is live in the IU102JS repo. So if you went to this URL here, GitHub Redis Labs training IU102JS, then you can basically interact with this by just putting gitpod.io/hash in front of it, and off it will go. So we don't officially offer this as like a supported option for taking the course yet, but it is so easy to use that we would love to see students try it out and see how you get on with it. I think I'll let Pauline speak to this later, but I think people get something like 50 hours a month on this to try it out. So that should be adequate for trying one of our courses. And that was everything I've got. So I think if we bring everybody else back, we can sort of wind things up.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for that. Like you say, it's a bit of a game changer. And like I said at the beginning, folks that cannot use Docker, and we can't assume that everybody can. I think it's really easy for us here, UK, USA, and places like that. We're all working for tech companies here. We're all given really nice machines to work on. Not everybody has that. And I think that is easy to forget. So this just makes it a lot easier. And actually, on some of our courses, the only reason we have the Docker integration is because some kind person put it in Hacktoberfest for us, didn't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the majority of our courses, all of our course URLs or repos are open source. And Suze organized Hacktoberfest at Redis last October, which is a DigitalOcean competition based around contributing to GitHub. And we created some issues, and the community very kindly sort of built Docker Compose files for our applications, so you can run them entirely like that. But this takes that work and builds on it and moves it all into the cloud, which is just fantastic for me.
Yeah, it just gives people more choice, doesn't it? Whatever they're comfortable with, because learning new stuff is hard anyway. So if we can reduce some of the friction, like Pauline said earlier, then that can only be a good thing. So let's have a look. Yeah, definitely. Let's have a look at some questions that I think are frequently asked about this. So we touched on cost just now. I'm going to ask Pauline how much of all of this costs, because it's so good, like surely it can't be free. And then I'm going to come to Simon to talk about, because we obviously need a cloud, Redis cloud set up to do the courses. Then we'll talk about that. But Pauline, first off, how much have people got to pay for this thing?
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. First one that people are probably thinking about. So yeah, if it's actually we upgraded our free plan last year actually. So everyone gets 50 hours per month to use on their public or private repos. And that free plan also includes having 4 parallel workspaces running at the same time. So that, it's really difficult to, I think once you moved to the cloud and, developing on a remote dev environment, you start to understand why people have multiple workspaces open. You can multitask. Like I never was that person, but now you can multitask. But yeah, you get 4 parallel workspaces running at once, which is really good for like debugging or trying to replicate the issue for someone or something like that. You also get 30 minutes of inactivity timeouts. And that essentially means that if you don't move your mouse or anything on your browser, if you're not actively typing, after 30 minutes, it will turn itself off. But you do have 30 minutes in that free plan. So yeah, anyone can get started with 50 hours. And when I first discovered Gitpod, I didn't think 50 hours was enough. But then I was quite surprised by how much I got done in 50 hours. So yeah, definitely try that out. And if you do want to upgrade to get 100 hours per month, you can upgrade to our personal plan, which is about €8 per user per month. And then our professional plan is 23 euros per month per user. And you have unlimited hours. You can have 8 parallel workspaces, and you can also have some team plans there. And if you go on gitpod.io/pricing, it just dives into pricing a bit more there. But yeah, we very much have all sorts of people from like open source developers, like professional open source developers, to students, to teams. And so, yeah, there's a bit of everything for everyone, I think.
Nice. Yeah. And I think anyone who's used any of these kind of free things, I'm thinking Heroku, you're kind of used to the fact that there are limitations, but actually what you get for free is quite often not really a watered down version, is it?
No, absolutely not. Yeah, you can definitely, like a lot of our developers can definitely go and just use the free plan. And some of them end up upgrading just because they're like, okay, I'm going to switch my whole dev environment to the cloud because it makes more sense now I've had a taste of it. But yeah, so give it a go. 50 hours is definitely enough.
I think the other thing it's important to point out is essentially when you're working with the source code, you're working with like a fork of my repo in your GitHub, so you can persist stuff back to there. And then if you want to pick that up from somewhere else, like your laptop or it's there and it's stored. One of the problems we had with Docker containers before was our first go at Docker containers weren't persistent. So you had an IDE in the container and you did some work, and then you'd like turn Docker off and went away and came back tomorrow, and it's like, oh, it's reset to that challenge that I solved is no longer solved. So persisting things into GitHub is great from here.
Yeah.
And it's another way that students can then share with me. They can share like a permalink line into a GitHub for something they've changed, and we can look at it and go, no, that's where you're doing it wrong, or you might want to consider this other thing. So yeah, just really really pleased with it. And then in terms of Suze asked me about Redis. So shameless plug, we at Redis obviously have Redis in the cloud that you can run as well. So the Gitpod we were looking at today runs Redis in Docker inside Gitpod's environment. So it's just set up as part of the environment. You can also go to redis.com/try-free and sign up for an entirely cloud Redis instance, including some of our modules. So if you want full text search and secondary indexing, or if you want JSON, or if you want to use Redis as a graph database with Cypher, we have additions for that. You can check whichever ones of those you like. Our plan is basically you get 30 megabytes worth of Redis. So what does that mean? Redis keeps all the data in memory, so it persists it, but all the reads come from memory for speed. So you get 30 megabytes worth of memory to store your data in, which you'd be surprised how much you can get in there for either trying things out, try something new, use it as a sort of CI/CD for environments. And then when you're ready to go to production, we have plans from like $7 a month, and obviously we manage the scaling. Latency is a big thing with Redis, so like the speed of application to the database. So people sort of say, oh, you have Redis Cloud. What does that mean? I use AWS. When you set up a Redis instance in our cloud, you can tell us which actual cloud to install it on and whereabouts. So if you're running your code in like AWS US East 1, or you're running it in Google Cloud in the center of the US, you can pick those things when you set it up, and we will host your free trial or paid Redis as close to your application as possible, minimize the latency. So in terms of how would you use that with the courses all have a configuration file, and they take a host, a port, and a password for Redis. So you just open that configuration file, replace it, and then rather than using the Gitpod hosted Redis, you'd use your cloud one.
Cool. All sounds good. People can get up and running today. There is no excuse. So definitely, please go ahead and do that. So we talked about like if you were using Docker, and there's nothing wrong with using Docker if you want to, but obviously some people have got limitations, which mean that it's more difficult to do that. So Pauline, if you leave the workspace, what happens? We did touch upon this earlier, but let's just reassure everybody.
No, absolutely. Yeah, because this is a common thing that people like ask, because it's tough to sort of like understand once everything is on the cloud and it's in remote and it's not on your local machine. It's like, where are the files and what's going on and stuff. So what happens is, so essentially if you open up a new workspace and you're working on it and you make some changes and you don't commit it, and say you went for a walk, then you came back, what happens to your workspace? So it would stop because of the 30 minutes of inactivity. It would stop. However, if you go on gitpod.io/workspaces, which is your like dashboard for a list of all your workspaces that you've ever opened, you should be able to see that stopped workspace at the top. And then once you click on that and then click on open, you should be able to open your workspace again with all of your changes that haven't been committed. So it should be in that workspace. It's not lost or anything. But it is like good practice. This is just how I use Gitpod, and ephemeral environments. Like for me, ephemeral, it's one of those things that you sort of just throw away after you're done with it. So after I finish like changing anything on Gitpod, I do tend to commit my changes. And just so I know it's in the repo already. And then therefore, the next time I open a new workspace, it's a completely fresh one, and I don't need to linger in one single workspace, if that makes sense. But yeah, it should always, all your uncommitted changes should always be on there. It's just, you have like a dashboard with a list of your workspaces, and you should be able to just open it with all of your changes. So yeah, I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it is good practice to commit, and not only commit, to push. And that I think that's something I've learned the hard way, because you don't want to go for the aforementioned 30-minute walk or 31-minute walk, come back, find out, I don't know, somebody spilled a drink on your laptop and you haven't pushed anything. It's like you're in a bit of trouble there anyway, aren't you?
Yeah, no, I always do it. I don't know. I think I've had too many times where something like my laptop's crashed, I've had to reset, and suddenly everything's gone and I don't know where it's gone. It's just disappeared. So yeah, I tend to just commit. But I know some people's workflows aren't like that. But yeah, be rest assured that if you do close your workspace on Gitpod, you won't lose all your changes, because it will still be there.
I'm glad you've considered the folks that don't use that kind of workflow. Yeah, I think it's natural to forget, or it's natural to just think, oh, I'll do it later. But
Yeah.
no, it is good to know. So a couple more questions then. Folks might have heard of other services that are similar. Other services are available, everybody. But today you're on the Redis and GitHub stream, so you're only going to hear about Redis and Gitpod. So we've heard about GitHub code spaces. Talk to us about the similarities and differences between Gitpod and GitHub code spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this question. Yeah, like you said, Suze, I think it's really important to say that we all have choices for all the different things that you can do. And I think that can be a good thing and a bad thing when you're in the developer tooling space, because it's like, whoa, there's so many choices to pick from. Which one should I pick? But I think at the same time, it's really good. The more people we have creating these sort of products, the better, because it really does confirm that we're heading in that direction and making it more inclusive for everyone to get involved. So yeah, we were really excited when GitHub decided to join the party in ephemeral and clouds dev environments. And we actually even sent them a cake to congratulate them when they launched. So yeah, I might share like a link if you're interested, because we created this. We actually got a cake person in San Francisco to create this like welcome to the party GitHub cake, and it's a really nice, very extra cake that we got sent to their office. But yeah, we're really excited that they joined the party, and it's also just awesome to give developers that choice. So yeah, just in a nutshell, the differences between code spaces and Gitpod is code spaces actually runs on virtual machines, whereas we run in containers. So that's like the technical differences, I guess. And we also have a breakdown of exactly the exact differences on our website at gitpod.io/gitpod versus GitHub code spaces, and you can have a look at that. I'll send the link as well. But yeah, also open source. So if you prefer working with open source projects, we are here. But yeah, I'll send that link across if you want to have a look. But that is the main difference, I think.
Nice. Yeah, I love you sent them a cake. I'm waiting for my cake now for our first collab. So I shall expect to bring in that.
We just want to send everyone cakes at this point.
Yeah, definitely. Like, because you can't see us. You can't buy me a drink or anything. So
yeah, just buy you a cake.
Exactly. I'll be happy with that. So you've had some questions in from the audience, which is really cool. And I was actually going to ask you about this topic as well, actually, because you know somebody who was using Gitpod, I think you said with their television set and their phone, and they were actually coding doing that. So Zafis has asked, does Gitpod work on tablets and phones?
Yes, it does. Yeah. So my colleague Jeff, he's on holiday right now. He lives in Australia. His whole story is so cool, but he lives in Australia in a van. And he just travels around Australia in this van, and he has different ways of connecting to the internet. But essentially, he actually, I think his like MacBook broke, and then it took a while for it to be returned from Apple or whatever. So he ended up buying an iPad Pro, and he was using this iPad Pro solely for software engineering for like 3-4 months straight, and he just used that. But yeah, it is possible because you only need a browser. So you just open up Safari, do exactly the same thing, prefix your URL with gitpod.io/hash. However, we don't have an extension that you can install on your iPad or tablet or phone or whatever, so you can't just click a button. However, if you do use GitLab, actually, from GitLab, they have a button already integrated that says open in Gitpod that doesn't use the extension. So that's the only way you can use that button. But other than that, you can just literally do, gitpod.io/hash to any repo, and that should open it. It doesn't matter if you're on a tablet, if you're on a phone. Just a fun fact, this is my second device here. I'll show you now. My second device is my iPad mini, and it has an open in Gitpod sticker. But sometimes when my laptop is just in the other side of the room and it's in the weekend and I want to work on my own personal projects, I open Gitpod on my iPad and I start coding from my iPad. And there was this one time I went down to London and I used my phone to help someone in our community with their issue that they were having on Gitpod. And I opened Gitpod on my phone and then I helped them as I was walking around London. So yeah, it just blows your mind of how that how that sort of works. And but yeah,
that's also a use case that we have a lot. It's like, we have students that talk to us on Discord. We both companies here operate Discord communities, and it kind of enables the trainers more that I'm more likely to answer someone if it's a case of like, oh, I'm on the cipher, I'll just reach for the iPad and click the URL and I'm there, rather than, right, I'm going to go get the laptop, I'm going to take it out of the last context I was working in and put it into this new context I'm working in and swap all my Docker containers around.
It's
incredible. I can totally see how it enables a lot of community sort of banter and getting things done.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was going to say that we recently had someone, a new person join us at Gitpod, and he's working as a community engineer in the community with me as an intern, and he actually doesn't have a laptop, and he's been using his Android device connected to a TV with a keyboard and mouse Bluetooth setup, and he had been doing that, contributing to our community through that for months before, we hired him and we're getting him a laptop, which is changing his life. But, it's like that is possible. So you don't really need the fanciest machine.
No, I would imagine if you've got a TV, then like a sort of £75, $100 Raspberry Pi 4 and any old keyboard and a mouse and an HDMI cable is more than enough to contribute to a lot of major projects like this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love this because this is how I started coding back in the 80s. I had my computer connected up to the only TV in the house. I feel like it's come full circle.
It's come, yeah. Oh, that's lovely.
Definitely. And even just little things like Simon said, if he's on the sofa and somebody's shouting in for help on Discord and he needs to go figure out what they've done and, what they need to do. Even things like, my personal website is built on Jekyll through GitHub pages. And if anyone wants to build that on their local machine, they've got to clone it and all that. And then they've got to run the local environment and stuff. And it's just nice if you don't have to do that. And that's just a really simple project. That's not even really what I would call an app. But that's just really handy if somebody wants to make a change there or do a little pull request or something. It just lowers the barrier to entry, I think.
Absolutely.
A lot.
Yeah. And that's why I love it. Yeah. I mean, that's why I love working for the company, because it just my values have always been trying to open tech for everyone, and Gitpod really does that. It's incredible.
Yeah, I love the story about your new colleague there with their phone.
Yeah, honestly, it just blew my mind. I was like, wow, that's incredible. Opening doors to a lot of people, for tech. So
and like your colleague Jeff, who's doing the van life thing in Australia. This is what a lot of people are doing now, aren't they? They're kind of thinking, I don't need to be tied to anywhere physically. Let's go and do nomad type life. And so this makes it a lot easier, not least because, it's just really expensive to live in a lot of places. So a lot of tech people are doing this, and, some people in tech have paid quite a lot of money, and even they're finding that they need to do this. So I think this will help them too. So we've got another couple of questions, again from Zafis. So thanks, Zafis, for joining us and asking these questions today. Zafis would like to know, is Gitpod running on Kubernetes under the hood? And also, sorry, me and Simon are playing tag there with the covers. Is Gitpod running on Kubernetes under the hood? And also Zafis wants to know, if their code base requires Kubernetes pods, will those be started when the code runs?
Oh, that's a tough question. I can answer your first question. So is Gitpod running on Kubernetes under the hood? Yes, it is. That's a good, straightforward answer. Yes. Your second question around, so if your code base requires Kubernetes pods, will those be started when the code runs? I think I'll have to see like an example of what you mean. Like, do you mean, is your code base, does it require Kubernetes pods? You need Kubernetes pods to run your application. Yeah, I'd have to see how you've set it up, but to answer your question, if Kubernetes runs on Gitpod, it gets really meta, and there's so many abstractions if you really start to think about it. But yeah, you can run Kubernetes on Gitpod. So yeah, definitely one worth like experimenting with that to see if it works with your code base. But yes, is the answer to that.
Cool. Thanks for that. Last question then before we wrap up. So you showed us that you can use VS Code or whatever your IDE of choice is in Gitpod. Can you decide? I don't know if this is a really stupid question or not. Can you decide, right, I'm not going to use VS Code on my editor in Gitpod. I'm just going to use that as I do normally, but I'm going to use Gitpod for the other stuff, so all the dependencies and stuff like that.
Yeah, no. So yeah, no, that's totally possible, because I know some things like some people really like their local dev environment. So are you saying, can they use VS Code locally but still use Gitpod at the same time? Is that what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of developers, when we talk about Gitpod, a lot of them are sort of like hesitant because they love their local setup. They love how, you know, they can just open up VS Code and stuff like that. But at the same time, they are interested in Gitpod because of all of the different, you know, all the powerful tools and features that comes with Gitpod. So, you know, not having all of those dependencies on your local machine is awesome, and they want to be freed from that, but at the same time they're attached to their local environment. And so we've actually created VS Code desktop support. So if you open your Gitpod like workspace, and there's actually a pop-up that comes up that says, would you like to open this in VS Code desktop? And then if you click, you know, yes, what that actually does is it opens up VS Code locally, your VS Code desktop locally, and then it connects to the instance in the cloud of your Gitpod instance. And so when you're making changes and editing on your VS Code setup locally, you still have the advantages of using sort of Gitpod resources for things like spinning up, I don't know, like the web servers or whatever you're working on. So nothing is really on your machine. You're just opening it up from VS Code locally. So there's that. That's the first option, and I can send some like videos and some links if you are wanting to go down that route. Alternatively, like if you do want to use Gitpod, another thing that we have is people saying like, I have things like dot files and customization that I can't be, you know, I don't want to bring it all to Gitpod. I just want like one solution that will allow me to replicate that that local feel onto Gitpod. And we actually recently launched dot files support on Gitpod. So if you have a repo on GitHub with all of your dot files, you can just copy that link and then put it in Gitpod and save that setting and whatever. And then once you open up a new workspace, your dot files should work, and it should almost be like you're bringing the local environment that you're used to all this time into Gitpod. So yeah, there are loads of layers of ways you can bring that local dev environment to Gitpod and make them work side by side. So it benefits everyone.
I could see the hybrid approach of running like the IDE locally and then everything else on Gitpod is really good for our Windows student community, because as I said earlier, there's like technical reasons why Redis doesn't run natively on Windows, so you have to use WSL, which is then another big ask of people to be like, oh, let's go create a whole other Ubuntu machine so that you can then create a Docker container. So yeah, working your own IDE and keep that stuff in the cloud is really good for those folks.
No, absolutely, yeah, and it's just awesome because I think it really does allow. It gives a lot of choice to developers. Whichever way they want to work, they can do that. So
definitely, yeah. Okay, cool. Let's wrap up then. Let's have some final thoughts and plugs from both of you. Simon, I'm going to ask you what's coming next with Redis University, because we already talked about RU102J JS specifically for this, RU102J and RU102 PY, I think it is, for Python. But I know that you've got some exciting stuff coming up in the next few months with Redis U.
Yeah, so shameless plug, you should join Redis University and take a course or several courses. You can take as many as you like because the cost of taking them is free. It's basically the cost of your time. And one of the ways that we will try and mitigate your time is through things like this, making the environment easier to set up, and through our community on Discord here. So you can come chat with myself and the other people that you see on Redis University videos and the wider community. So quite often, if a student asks a question, it'll get answered by another student, which is fantastic because that's people helping each other. And then we monitor that. Our team's based across a range of time zones, so we have pretty good support. I'm here in the UK. We have people as far ahead of me as Israel and as far behind me as the west coast of the US. So that covers quite a lot of the day. Then in terms of what's coming up, we have 8 courses out there now. So there's Introduction to Redis Data Structures, which is like the foundational course. There's the programming courses that we looked at today for the 3 languages. So Python, JavaScript, Node, and Java. And then we have other courses that focus on things like Redis streams, which is a data type that approximates an append-only log or a data stream. And there's all sorts of cool stuff you can do with that in any language. And we have courses that look at using Redis as a full text search and secondary indexing engine. So if you want to put a load of data in there and do like full text search, autocompletes, and SQL-like querying over it, which is not something you'd expect from a key value data store, we have a course for that. And if you're more into operating databases than developing applications for them, we have a course around how to harden and secure a Redis instance, so managing users and permissions and TLS and SSL and all of that stuff. And then we have a course about how to scale Redis, so building out clusters, managing that, and when you should think about moving to a cloud provider. We are currently building a course around storing arbitrary JSON data in Redis, which is something that we've recently added full text search over. So we're building a course where you'll look at a books data set and we'll store data about books and then run queries around it, like, find me all the books that were written by a female author in these years that have an average rating of this much and where we have at least 2 copies of them in the library. Not the sort of thing you'd expect to do with a key value data store. That's coming out early this year, so that's one we're working on, but you can sign up for it now and we'll notify you when it's up and running. Everything else, the courses are continuously open, so you can sign up and start whenever you like, and you have mostly a 6-week time frame to do them in. But if you wanted to like Netflix binge them, you can do them all in one afternoon or day, or you can spread it out over time because we save you progress. And then, as ever, regardless, if you want to try Redis out, the best way of doing it is try Redis Enterprise, and you can get a free one of those. We also have a tool that we didn't use today called Redis Insight, which is a GUI tool for looking at data in Redis. Whatever Redis you use and wherever you get it from, give it a try. It's a really good way of visualizing your data and seeing what's going on, and also getting performance metrics. So that was all I've got. So Pauline, go for it.
Yeah, no, that sounds exciting. Really excited for everyone getting involved in Redis. So yeah, from my side, if you are interested in getting involved with the Gitpod community or trying out Gitpod, feel free to check out our Discord channel. So it's at gitpod.io/chat. And in that Discord, we also host weekly community office hours. So if you come with a problem or you want to ask the Gitpod team about anything related to Gitpod, we're more than happy to help out and help you solve your problem on Gitpod, or just get better at using Gitpod if you're confused about any concepts or anything like that. And also, it's a good way to meet new people, and there's so many cool people that hang out in our Gitpod Discord channel, and they come from all walks of life, because as I said at the start, Gitpod sort of touches every single technology you can ever imagine. So it's really cool to see what people are building on Gitpod. So yeah, feel free to come check us out there. And if you do want to learn more about Gitpod, we have screencasts, videos, live streams on our YouTube account, and also our documentation and blog posts for just daily insights of Gitpod and its growth, because so many new things are coming out and so many new features are just making Gitpod better and better. So if you want to be part of that sort of cloud remote dev environment future, come and check us out, come and have a chat. And yeah, I think that's everything from me. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, no, thanks for giving up your time to do this collab. It's been really fun. Cool. So yeah, hopefully, like I said at the beginning, the first in a series of collabs with you. We have to think of something else to do.
Oh, absolutely. I'm back here. Well, whatever you need, we'll have to think of something else.
Yeah, we will have to. Let's ask the community and see what they want to see.
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely. But yeah, thanks again, Pauline, for joining us today and giving up your time for this. Thanks to you, Simon, as well, for giving up your time to talk to us about Redis University. And thanks to all the viewers who joined us live, asked questions, and also to all of you watching the recording. We will be back again soon with another live stream. Please do sign up. Subscribe to us on YouTube and or Twitch, whichever is your platform of choice. And we will see you again very soon. Look after yourselves. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thanks.